Shit, okay, it looks like we're live. I see there's a few people here. What's up, guys? Welcome to tonight's stream. I'm speechless. Words can't describe how much this one means to me. We've got the king of YouTube, Squidge Rugby, the man behind everything creative and brilliant about the sport we all know and love. He is with us. Squidge, welcome to Walking Towards G-Man. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, no, thank you for having me. That's an incredibly kind introduction, as was the video you're announcing it. It's almost too big a billing for me to ever be able to live up to. So genuinely, thank you very much. I hugely appreciate that.
No, man, it's an absolute honor. I mean, what first, before we get into the whole conversation, I mean, the question I'm dying to ask you, and I think a lot of people would say the same. How long does it take you to create a video of genius that you do? For example, that Springbok video you created, which was, it gives me goosebumps. It gets a tear in the eye every time I watch it. And even your latest one about the box, other one. How long does it take to create a Squidge video?
I don't know how long about Video Genius, but one of my videos takes about. So it takes. There's the phase of sort of doing the research. So with that Springboks one, and with the one I'm working on Japan at the minute, there's a lot of rewatching old games. So if it's just a report on a match like the one on the final, I'll just watch it maybe 3 times if it's a big game. Sometimes, increasingly, I can get away with just watching it twice, plus watching the tries and so on more times.
Yes. The full game twice.
Yeah, at least. And because often you'll notice something tiny, you'll notice oh, actually, that's really interesting the way Bernard Leroux comes into the mall there or something. And you kind of work it out from then. You go, oh, well, he did that several times. You kind of begin to notice patterns. That's the way it works for me. I've actually got my notebook next to me here. So really? I just flick to a random page at the start during the Six Nations. So here you are. Here's my notes on England-Wales. Where's the best? There you go. They go on for a few pages. I could tell you in the 57th minute, George Cruz goes off. It's 65 minutes and 34 seconds. There's a great stab through by Owen Farrell in field. It's that kind of thing, when I'm doing kind of the research phase.
That's insane.
And then from there, I'll write a script. I'm quite a big rewriter. That's kind of always been my background, is the writing stuff. So I redraft quite a lot. And then once that's done, I then record it and finally begin actually editing it. And the big useful thing about the notes is, yes, it helps me in terms of writing stuff and noticing stuff and be able to refer back to, but it's really useful to just be able to go, if I say Owen Farrell put in some great kicks, I can then go, oh, in that 56 minutes I got written down there, he put in this kick, so I can just pull it, and it makes my job far easier when I'm doing the editing bit. So there's a few points in the crowd where it just says so and so pulls a funny face, or there's an interesting person in the crowd, because I know they come in handy as well.
That for me is just pure genius when you do that. Is those comedy lines that you have when certain moments like that happens. And I mean, the fact that you take so much note and credit into it, I think is just absolutely remarkable.
Oh, thank
you. To be able to just pick that up and have that is absolutely insane. So jeepers. More respect there.
Yeah, thank you. No, I don't think it's much genius. I think anyone could do it if anyone was insane enough to have the patience to do it. If anyone had the time to set aside and watch endless hours of rugby over and over again and pick up on it. I don't think it's beyond anyone. I don't think it's like a particular skill that only I have. I think I'm just maybe it's patient, hard work. I don't know, whatever it is. But able to endure watching that Italy-Scotland game from the Six Nations or whatever it was several times.
No, I mean, it's just remarkable. And with rugby, with you growing up and all that, has that always been your passion, or the other sports? What ignited you to decide, all right, I'm going to start creating content or videos about rugby and share the passion? I know you said on Rugby Pass's interview that you did play a little bit and you touch rugby every now and then. But has it always been your big passion and love for the sport?
Pretty much, yeah. It was, I was born to a Welsh family, so I didn't have a choice in terms of,
passionate.
like rugby is just thrown at you from an early age. When I was, I think, 6 or 7, my dad took me out of school to go and see Wales play Japan. He took me out of school at midday, and then Wales were playing at like 7 p.m. on the Friday night against. It was still a record win. Gavin Henson, man of the match. And so there's a few moments like that, and I would watch it here and there. I'd watch it during like the international periods, and I'd watch World Cups and Six Nations. And then it was the 2008 Grand Slam where it really clicked for me. I became like properly obsessed. And then after that, started to get more and more into it. After Wales winning that Six Nations and kind of coming from nowhere against England, and I started to watch the Ospreys, started to watch more and more club rugby. So by the start of the following season, by the start of this kind of 2008-9 season, I was watching all the Welsh games. I was watching as much of the kind of other stuff as possible. I was watching all the Six Nations games that following year. And then especially after that Lions tour in 2009, that kind of turned me on to world rugby as a whole. So I then from there began watching the Tri Nations, began watching Super Rugby, and began to seep into like watching those dodgy streams at 4 a.m. of Georgia playing Samoa and Russia playing whoever, and that kind of all grew slowly over 2 years. Having been a thing I watched and was interested in, it grew into a proper passion over a couple of years between that Grand Slam and that Lions tour.
That's one thing I've learned quite a lot with doing YouTube and all that stuff, is the passion for the game grew more. Like I started my channel just to be like motivation and inspire people, and then the sport has always been me. That's my biggest passion. And I thought, you know what, I'm not on super sport. I couldn't play rugby because I've got dwarfism. So I thought, why not share the love and passion on YouTube? And I literally, I think my first video was a tribute to Uist, and then I ripped Alistair Coetzee a new one. And then I thought, oh, this is more. Okay, normally my average is 20 to 50 views, and now all of a sudden there's 1,000 people that watch. And I thought, that's incredible. Let's actually go into this. And through then, out of all of it, obviously I know my Super Rugby and my championship, that was like my passion. But then the Six Nations I fell in love with. And I mean, I always watched it with my dad, but for me, getting to know the players and all about everything over there with the history of Six Nations, I don't know, the love showed, and people, all of a sudden, I've now got the biggest following out of my channel. My highest is the UK, when you'd think it'd be South Africa, because I'm from South Africa. And that was the UK. Then Ireland took over. It was crazy. And I learned so much from the sport and the knowledge of rugby and through this journey. So I can relate to what you said about, the more you go on and you just create a passion.
And it is sorry, no, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go for it.
It's a better game when you know the players and you know the teams individually. Yeah, it's so much more fun to go, oh, actually, I know all about X, Y, Z. And that's the thing I loved about the fact that this is now my full-time job, meant that in the lead up to that World Cup, I got to properly really know the Russia, the Uruguay, all of the really smaller nations in a way. I remember I'd always watch a lot of the other teams in a World Cup year. I still vividly remember watching Japan play, like getting up at like 4 a.m. to watch Japan play in 2015 against Tonga or Fiji, and kind of seeing Khan Hefscott playing, going, this lad's useful. I like the look of him. And little knowing he'd go on to score the most famous try in rugby history. I'm sorry to bring it up, but I've always loved things like that. I've always loved really getting to know the players from the smaller nations, because as I say, it's better when you do that. And I've just gone on a sort of ramble there. You were going to say something interesting, and I've just kind of gone off on one.
No.
And the other thing I will say, sorry, about the passion thing, is just about your channel and what you've managed to achieve. Because I like what you do. I do watch it. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you. And I remember that means a lot coming from you.
The first thing I think of when I think of your channel and your stuff is, you remember the 2018 game where the Springboks won in New Zealand, first time in 10 years. The first thing I wanted to do when the final whistle went was I went and checked your channel to see when your reaction was going up, because there's something so just contagious about your enthusiasm for rugby and for the Springboks that's so lovely to see. And as you say, it's sharing that passion. That's something you really managed to do.
Yeah, we were that one was, and you talk about it, it just freaking gives me goosebumps. It's just I'm so proud and passionate about South Africa and the country, and there's so much damn negativity around with certain things that are going on, and you know, South Africa under Alistair Coetzee, Springboks was just a very dark time.
Yeah.
And people were literally taking their Springbok jerseys, throwing it in the braai fires. It was a very tough time, and I'm strong at believing that in sickness and in health, like you say, when you're getting married, you support your damn team and you be with them till the end of the moment. And that was the thing. And I remember that game because I think I had a little bit of a bubble ass too at that time, so I was quite emotional as well. But it was just remarkable of how they fought. And when Damien McKenzie did that knock on, it was like, I think, my mate and I, we literally shouted the morning awake because it was like 9-10 o'clock in South Africa. And normal people are doing things and we just went mad. And I literally, I went into that recap. And I think that's maybe the thing with my channel. I've never tried, I'm not a professional, I'm not an analyst, I'm not, I'm just a fan, and that's me. I'm a fan giving my knowledge. I'm not right always. I'm not wrong in certain aspects, but it's just that fan experience of sharing the love and passion, and I think that's what people enjoyed. And I try my damn hardest not to be biased as well, and it's not easy, but those are the things that I try and keep to me going forward. Is the loyalty for the country and the team, but also the respect for the nations that we play against. Like I've got a very soft spot for the All Blacks. And I mean, it's just of what they've done with South Africa, the history, the 95. There's a lot of great times. So I think that's also generated a love for the sport and the game and in Six Nations, because Ireland was the top viewed country. For me, that meant a lot, that it's getting out there from Irish people who are across the night, far away, are watching me. And then England grew, then Australia. It was remarkable, and I think you must have gone through that too, in your growth stage of your channel. Because I mean, you fly. I mean, I think you've only just gone off our trending page in South Africa for your latest video on the how the Springboks won the World Cup. So I mean, you're known here. I mean, you're the king of it. That's why.
I mean, there was an article on me in an Afrikaans newspaper, which is bizarre. Yeah, like they sent me a copy of it, like a photo of the page, and it's like, I'm sorry, I can't read Afrikaans. I've got no idea what you've written about me.
I'm English. I'm so bad with Afrikaans, so don't worry, you're not the only one there. Even though my best mates are all freaking Afrikaans, I'm the English Soti, as we call it.
And there is I noticed just scrolling through the comments, there's Grant Schwartz asking when I'm going to get my South African citizenship, because that's such a huge point of my of the last few months, since the World Cup in particular, is how warm South African fans have been. And I have, again, especially since Erasmus came in and Khaleesi took over as captain, I've developed such a soft spot for this South African team, because they play, as I said in that video, they play like a traditional South African team, like one of those teams you really hate to play against. And because traditionally that was always it, it's like you hate playing against the Springboks. Just it's the worst, because they always beat you and it hurts. Like they're not just. I said this on the video.
I laughed when you said that in the video.
But it's the other thing I really hate as a Wales fan is Australia, just because they always beat us in the last 5 minutes. We'd always look like we're going to win, and then it would just fall away at the last second. Curly B would turn up and do something. It was awful.
That's like us in cricket. We also hate the Aussie for when they clap us in the cricket. So I can relate to that one.
The South African, I developed such a soft spot for the team because they played that, but while still being likable, like you could like them as an outsider. You could go, actually, there's some really cool inspirational stories in here, and most of their teams seem like really cool people. And I love how varied and diverse the team is, and the sheer passion of them. You know, like it's so easy to buy into a team like the Uruguay team last year, like the Argentina team in 2007, like you know, the Japan teams in either the last two World Cups, who are going on passion, who are so passionate, and that's so obvious in the South African team. So I've got such a soft spot for them, and I was quite thankful that kind of blew through, and because they were my kind of, after that All Blacks game, I remember that autumn saying sort of September time, and maybe this was a bit whatever, but after the way Wales have been playing and sort of starting to look in the way, and knowing Gatland and having put a lot of time watching Wales and so on, I said, I think South Africa will play Wales in the semi-final, and the winner of that game will win the World Cup. And I wasn't wrong. And I've been kind of living off that for the last however long.
Good on you. I mean, the World Cup, I think we all relate, people in the comments, everyone around the world. If we could go back to that time, we could, because I think, and that's the thing, going back to South Africa, is how far that team came. I mean, I'll never forget one of the hate comments I got on YouTube saying, your South African team, they're 6th in the world. They're never going to get higher than 5th place. They're going to lose. They're going to be out in the group stages. And that's why I got so emotional in my stream and started like tearing up and crying, because how far we came. And the story of Sia Kolisi, a township chap, having nothing, to getting the opportunities and growing forward, Springbok captain, first black captain to lead a team in the South African World Cup. And it was all that emotion that just, it was like we did it. And I mean, I was one who also said Springboks could do this. And I never lost faith in this team. And that Wales game, I think it was my first ever, it was just, the stream was just incredible. And it was so close. It was so intense. Like, people are saying, you got this, man, don't worry. I'm like, no, we haven't. There's still a long way. Wales were fighting. There were opportunities there. And I mean, a lot of guys still say they didn't have their full team, etc., etc. But when it came to that final, when we played England, and how the country united, I mean, we've got a lot of great things to be proud of and positive of in South Africa. And seeing the shopping centers of all races, black, white, Indian, colored, races, religions, everyone uniting, singing Xhosa songs, English songs, Afrikaans songs. It was electric. And I get emotional even talking about it right now. But that was what united the country. And when we got that moment, the appreciation and we've done it. We've gone through tough times, but at the end of the day, if you keep believing in yourself, you can achieve absolutely anything. And that for me was a good thing. But like, as you said, South African fans, we're a very passionate nation, but we're also very, what's the word? We're a tough nation too. If our team's not doing great, we give them a tough time. Like the poor Proteas who never can win a Cricket World Cup. The amount of slaughter they get when they get choked out. But that Springbok comeback from 6th or 7th in the world, worst ever. You said it in the video too, where we just lost quite. There was you weren't scared of the Springboks like you were. The All Black fans kept saying on my channel, I miss the South African team that gave us a fight, a competition.
I remember, I think it was maybe the 2017 game against the Springboks for Wales, where I went in just expecting us to win, which had never been the case. We'd beaten the Springboks a couple of times. Mostly 2014 was the second time we'd ever beaten them. After the only time before was 1999, the first game in the Millennium Stadium. And otherwise, I remember that being a huge deal when we beat them finally, or beat you, whatever you want to call it. And then coming to 2017 and being like, we should beat them. We should beat them, fine. And then when it kind of came down to the last 5-10 minutes, feeling quite disappointed that we didn't put it to bed. And then kind of thinking to myself afterwards, like, how has this happened? This shouldn't be the case. It should never be that we expect to beat the Springboks. And it just kind of happened slowly and quietly. And, because Ireland had that game where they won 40 odd points, like a couple of weeks before that. And so for them to rebuild from there to literally winning a World Cup 2 years later was amazing. And with everything you kind of love sport and rugby for was for the fact that it is unpredictable and it does throw up these storylines that are really that are inspiring and yet hard to see coming, and anything can happen at any point.
No, it's remarkable, and yeah, I mean, going on Wales, I mean, they beat us 4 times previously before we started really coming back. South Africa were just a team where, you know, it was like I mean, we got our record defeat in Ireland. We got 57-0. A lot of bad things or hard times happened in South Africa for the team, and that comeback is just, I can talk about it for days and weeks and months and years.
So can I. You've seen my videos.
Yes.
They're the edited versions. They're really cut down versions of that.
And I mean, it's just remarkable. But on that note, and I want to ask you this question because you study it, you know it. South Africa, obviously, we're talking about the Rugby Championship, Europe, how things are going on. Do you think, or what's your personal opinion on South Africa and the whole talk of leaving Super Rugby and Rugby Championship to go overseas? Do you think it's viable? Do you think it could happen? And yeah, is it something that should or shouldn't happen in your opinion?
I think it's really interesting. And I think, you know, there's been a lot of talk over, does rugby move away from being hemisphere based and being time zone based, which obviously, you know, as we can say now, the fact that we're only an hour apart, you know, it's the same.
Yes.
It's a very similar time zone, which is also great for the Lions next year because it means we're not getting up at like 9 a.m. to watch every game. It's easier to be pumped for a game at 3 p.m. than it is for a game at 9 a.m. where you're kind of setting your alarm half an hour beforehand. And so I think that's kind of the core argument. And obviously the Super Rugby being so badly affected by coronavirus and everything that's happened lately, obviously stuff with the Jaguares in the last few days, which is a huge shame.
Big time. I agree.
Yeah, it becomes a case of there's already 2 South African teams in the Pro 14, and they've worked far better than I think I expect them to. I think a lot of people expect them to.
Yes.
And I think because they've managed the schedule really carefully and they've made sure that they're not flying back and forth every week, as happened with the Jaguares Super Rugby. It meant they were just permanently jet lagged. That they've made sure that actually, you know, when a Welsh or Irish or Scottish team has gone over to South Africa, they played both of the games quite close together, like consecutively. They played the Kings and the Cheetahs. And they've likewise made sure that, you know, the Cheetahs haven't been flying out and then flying back to Cardiff in 1 week. They've been staying around and playing the Dragons and going up to Glasgow, which is only, you know, an hour's flight. So they've got to be careful with how they do that. And I think actually adding more South African teams to the Pro 14 would help that. It would mean it's more viable. You can always just add an extra conference that becomes the South African conference and is most heavily focused on there. It's for people far smarter and better at this to decide than me. But I could see it working in a way. If you'd asked me 5 years ago, before when it was the Pro 12 rather than Pro 14, I wouldn't have felt so. So yeah, I'm really interested to see where it's going. Also, I've just seen the comment about the life of a full-time YouTuber thinking waking up at 9 a.m. is early. That's fair enough. That's entirely fair. I am going to be getting at 4 a.m. for the Super Rugby though.
There we go. Yeah.
Sorry.
It's on that note. Sorry, we're going to go between.
Okay.
And I want to ask you this as a person who I hope to be like you one day, where I could say, all right, this is full time maybe, and all that stuff. Well, that feeling must have been remarkable when you could go in and turn out or quit your job and say, this is what I'm going to do full time, what I love, what I'm passionate about. I mean, that must have been quite something for you to make that big career change, because obviously it's massive. But to wake up every day, 9 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whatever time it is, and to know you're doing this, your love, your passion. I mean, that must be amazing for you.
Yeah. It was initially quite scary because I
can imagine.
I've been working for a university here in the UK, and basically my contract was coming towards the end. And in the last few kind of weeks and months, they started pushing me towards like, we're not going to renew your contract, but there's this other job. And if you apply for it, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you'll probably get it. I'm wanting to stay on and take this other position.
All right.
And I figured, actually, I'll just give it a go. You know, I was beginning to, I'd hit enough that I was, with the Patreon and the YouTube money and so on, I was just about covering my rent and bills. And I figured, if I can make X amount more videos per month, then I should be able to afford, you know, food and maybe 20 quid that I can spend on like a nice photo of a frog a month or whatever. You know, I'll find some novelty item. I'll buy this penguin, you know. I'll do whatever. A statue of Alan Wynne Jones.
There we go. Look at that.
Everything I've got
Hey,
around.
the king, Alan Wynne Jones. Come
Absolutely.
on, look at that.
Yeah, and so for the first couple of months, you know, like my mum was very nervous about the thought of me doing that. The thought of me
Yes, I can imagine.
what was an almost guaranteed and salary job at, you know, like a reasonable rate for my age. And instead when, no, I'm just going to try and make silly jokes about the word ruck. But I kind of got away with it. And it's going well. It's fair enough to say, you know, it's phenomenal, it's gone well. I've got into a position that is beyond where I would be expected, I guess, again, at my age, based on what my friends are doing and so on. So, yeah, I don't want to sound big-headed about it, but because I am very aware that I got very lucky and I got very, you know, I know it was a small, I knew there was a gap in the market when I started it. I didn't realize quite how big that gap in the market was. And I was quite lucky that I was one of the first maybe 3 or 4 people to do kind of, you know, bespoke rugby content on YouTube that wasn't just posting highlights reels or so on. So I was lucky in the fact that I was one of the first, and that gave me this room to grow in the way that now I think the market's far more saturated and the rugby market isn't as big as the market for, you know, you look at football, soccer, individual clubs have got their own kind of YouTube channels that are bigger than most of the ones in rugby. They're just dedicated to just talking about Arsenal or Liverpool or whoever it is. Rugby can't afford that market really. You've got the Free Red Kings with Munster, but Munster's a one-off in the, you know, I went there in January and it is so rugby focused, the area, the Cork and Limerick. Like you walk down the street and every third pub is owned by a former Munster player. And they were just like, you'll never walk somewhere else and see massive photos of Tyler Blayendahl outside the shop. But yeah, it's so rugby-ish that there probably aren't many other places you could do, many other clubs you could just focus on. So yeah, I've forgotten what my point was going to be. But it's a surreal thing, and it's something I'm very appreciative and grateful of consistently. You know, and when I've had friends worrying about the way their workplace was affected by the coronavirus, or you know, having to, I say, just get up at a normal time and go into work. And yes, I have the problem of, and again, I don't want to get all woe is me, but like, because I am naturally a workaholic, working from home does mean I will often just kind of wake up at 8-9 a.m. Inside half an hour, I'll start work, and I'll basically work until 1 a.m. And that's how those Springbok videos got done. That's how the video on the final got done in 8 days, because I was just doing that constantly. And that's sometimes not healthy, but that's kind of the one downside. And I have to recognize that, yes, occasionally I'll burn out and occasionally I'll get kind of, occasionally I'll miss out on this, that, or the other. But that is the one downside. And I should just be appreciative of where I am, and I am.
Have you built relationships, friendships with people like followers and fans and all that stuff in this world? Because if I look at myself, again, I'm a lot smaller than you, but when I look at people who've been loyal to the channel from early days, for example, Heinrich, who always comments on my content and is like one of my moderators, you know, I've never met the guy, but we communicate on social, on WhatsApp and all that. Have you built bonds and friendships and stuff with people who've followed you and all that stuff?
Oh, definitely, yeah. And it was, you know, I mean, the last couple of days I've watched, I don't know if you know Rhiannon Garth-Jones from Twitter, who writes Rugby Pass, who was initially just a couple of conversations on Twitter. Yes, a couple of conversations on Twitter that kind of grew out of hand. And it resulted in us, like, a couple of days ago, we watched the Twilight films, kind of not together, but like we synced up when we were watching them and rewatched them.
Yeah.
So that there's a few things like that, and things like, you know, again, people I've followed on Twitter and I've admired and so on, and like the, you know, podcasts I've listened to that I've now been on as a guest, or I've spoken to the people involved. That's really nice. That's really cool. You know, the Blood and Mud podcast that I'd listen to every week. And just to hear every now and again they'll mention me, and it's like, oh that's quite cool, because I was listening to them for years before I started doing this. And stuff like that's really nice. And also, like, when I was in Japan, you know, I went on my own for, what was it, 6-7 weeks, and I kind of was able to get through it because every now and again people would recognize me, or people would, you know, like, I do a meetup I did a couple of meetups in a bar and so on, and people would come along, and that was really cool. And like I went to the Wales Uruguay game, which was on the last day of the ball games, and it was the match directly before Scotland Japan. And there was this kind of atmosphere on the bus of like everyone watching the first 20 minutes, because the stadium is miles away from the centre of town and there's nowhere to watch the game nearby. So there's a few of us got it up on our phones and was watching it there. And I was only able to find a bar that was quiet enough to go and watch it, because I'd had Grace, hello, she probably won't be watching this, but there we go. Again, a follower had messaged me saying, I've seen you're struggling to get there. This bar's quite quiet and it's only, you know, 5 minutes from where the bus will drop you off. Run. And because you could kind of follow the game by just looking in through the corner of every pub and every bar, you were able to do that. And that was genuinely one of the best nights of my life. That, because the whole town was just full of, it's not a huge town, but it was like, it's pretty decently sized. It was full everywhere you went of people, just Welsh and Japanese fans, high-fiving each other and hugging each other in the street, congratulating each other on getting out the group. Because it was full of, it felt like the entire population of the town had gone out into bars and pubs and wherever to watch it. And you had so many that I'd walk past where they had a tiny TV, like a proper old school TV, and they had 20 people crowded around it. Or there was one pub that they had so many, and this is a complete tangent, sorry, but they had so many people they couldn't fit it inside. They got a projector and set it outside and were projecting it onto like a bank across the street. And so people were watching on the bank. And then, as I say, it was just people hugging each other in the street as they walked past it. I had like Angus Gardner walk down the street at one point, and he's like, "Oh, it's wow, professional referee." And someone kind of went, "That's Angus Gardner down there," and there was like this applause for him as he walked down the street. It was incredible. It was just, I've never been in a town so completely overwhelmed by goodwill as that was there, as having had, I say, Wales top the group for the first time ever, and I believe, I believe so. And Japan also get out the group and top the group for the first time by beating a second tier 1 nation at the home World Cup. And even like the Uruguay fans that are about, and I met a few of them who were just overwhelmed by how well their team had done. They were delighted as well because they completely exceeded expectations, and they'd held Wales to within a point at half time, which they wouldn't have expected at all at the start of the tournament. So it was an amazing place to be, and I've forgotten what the question was, but I've gone on 6 tangents and I've ended on what I think is quite a nice story.
No, but you talk about that, and it brings me back to the last year's final, or the semi-final and final for South Africa. It was, you talk about people hugging, and it's such an important thing right now in the time we're going through and what we've been with the whole movement of Black Lives Matter. What really stood out for me in South Africa is obviously we got cultures galore in this country of ours, and to watch people of color, different religions, hug, high five, chant, sit with your arm around each other, that for me was so important and so unique that it was a life-changing experience. And that also brought tears to my eyes on the day of the finals, because seeing there's so much negativity with government talk and all that jazz. If we just focus on what we as people can do and the power of it through sport, rugby, that's just once again brought a nation together. It just shows the power, and that's why I'm so all for sport and why I love this is because it changed my life. I was told as a kid I would never be able to play high school cricket, and I made it my goal to prove that coach wrong, and I eventually did and became first team captain. It's a story that not many people would know, but it's sport and it brings you together. So talking about that in pubs of people uniting, I go back to South Africa of cultures and people uniting. It just shows the power of sport, and it gives me so much hope. If we all have the right mindset and focus going forward, sport could change the world. I mean, it sounds silly and people laugh maybe, but it can change the world. And that's why, unity and equality through the sport. And if we can preach these things from our heroes, like you say, Angus Gardner, I mean, who would have thought would be cheering a referee, but he's such a well-known figure. Nigel Owens, one of my favorite refs in the world because of his comedy, his attitude for the sport. It's just brilliant. And it's those. Sorry. No, go for it.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off. No, the story of Nigel as well. And I've heard him tell it enough times of him, obviously being out and being gay, which to have come out when he did, back even before Gareth Thomas and before he was the first openly gay figure in rugby, I believe, at all. And
yes, I think he was.
The story he's told of enough times of his attempt to take his own life, and again that adds color and flavor to the sport, and it's so brave and genuinely inspirational to know that even the referees have these stories. It's not just the Siya. The Siya Khaleesi story is obviously incredible, but there's something going, oh, he's the captain. You kind of go, oh, well, he's the one who would have an inspirational story. But actually, every member of that Springbok team does. So many of the players in so many of the other teams do.
Pimpy, same situation.
Absolutely, the stuff with his sister, and there's a great video of, I think it's his grandmother, talking about how proud she is of him, basically, and of how she didn't want him to be associated with rugby because of the kind of the connotations it had pre-Mandela and pre-95 World Cup of apartheid, and that was what she thought of rugby as. And actually, he loved it. He just, they try and get him into other sports, and he just loved rugby, and that was his obsessive thing. And he'd kind of steal carrier bags and roll them up and use them as a rugby ball and run around and chuck them out local kids. And she realized actually this is the most important thing for him. This is the more important thing, that rugby can unite people, and it is this source of such inspiration for him. And he goes on then to be the first Springbok to ever score a try in a World Cup final, having come from this place. It's amazing.
No, it is, and it makes you, it gives so much hope and for the future of how lives can be changed and how sport needs to be introduced in schools and all these types of communities, because if you've got sport, then you're not led to crime and all other things going around you, because you've got this passion, and it's those stories that keep people fighting, and like guys who are less fortunate than us, I mean, they can look at Siya or Mapimpi or whoever it may be and go, wow, they went through this, but they're wearing that jersey, which is one of the greatest things ever. And same goes for all type of sports. I mean, we're talking about rugby, obviously, but it's amazing of how it just can unite a nation, a world, and everything like that. So it's just remarkable, and I think we can go back on all the histories of Mandela in '95, and all that jazz. It just, I mean, going to the UK, and I mean, this, the singing and the passion coming from those fans in a stadium. I mean, it's remarkable. My dad's one good friend, he often says, like when he watched Wales play at the Millennium, and he said he cried the whole way through the anthem because of the electricity of fans. and the
Yeah.
people there. And I mean, you must know that.
Oh, there's nothing quite like it. If you watching Wales play on a proper like big international in Cardiff, and again just watching, there's no ground quite like the Millennium Stadium, you know. And I obviously haven't been to every ground in the world, but I've been to most of the big ones in, you know, I've been to Test matches at Twickenham, I've been to the, you know, all of that. And there's nothing quite like Cardiff. I was almost spoiled by the fact it was the first sports ground I ever went to, you know, when my dad took me to see Wales play Japan. And it isn't the same atmosphere as I've seen us play England once. But that's an incredible thing. The way the atmosphere, the way the anthem kind of stands on its own, there are times you can watch the Welsh anthem and go, oh, we've won by 20 points. Just from the way the anthem is belted out, and the tears rolling down the faces. And there's something about the way the stadium is built as well. Like the sight lines are really great. And it also means the acoustics are great. That the sound kind of bounces off it when the roofs close as well.
Yes, I've heard that quite a bit.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I said there isn't a bad seat. Well, no, there was one photo went round of someone who had a kind of stone pillar in their way. There's one bad seat out of the 80,000 in there. That no matter where I've been sat, I've always had a really clear line of the action. I've always been able to see everything. And even when I've been to, you know, like Judgment Days and kind of club games, it's always felt amazing. There's nothing quite like it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I've been to Newlands, which is one of the Newlands faithful, which unfortunately comes to an end after this year. But we've seen so many things, great moments like PE Stadium. And again, maybe I'm biased because I live in Port Elizabeth, but it's just that electricity of the crowd. And because it's like a top dome thing, it echoes. And hearing the anthem, I mean, one of the legendary South African commentators, Hugh Bladen, was brought to tears because of the emotion of what the fans did. And we outsung the singers, which is remarkable. So, crowds, and that's the thing with the sport. And this is my question for you is, rugby to adapt without a crowd is going to be hard for us. Obviously, we're going to all enjoy it at the start because rugby's back, like next week's New Zealand. But the crowd holds such a massive key to the sport. And how do you think it's going to go with the sport going forward without a crowd?
That's just it. That's, you know, a large part of why I've kind of sworn by going to every World Cup in my lifetime, at least, you know, trying to go to a game or two in it, is because of the atmosphere and because of the crowd, as much as the fact that I love watching high level rugby. But I love you know, I remember in 2015, I went to the All Blacks Georgia game, and there were, you know, like 3 or 4 Kiwis sat next to me and my brother, and they just kind of leant over a couple minutes before the game and went, "Who's your favourite All Black then, lads?" And we just kind of ended up talking about rugby the whole time. And it turned out they were like, they got out their phone at one point and went, you know, like, here's Conrad Smith's number. And you're kind of like, okay, that's a name drop. I mean, he's on the pitch, or he won't answer if you ring him. But it's things like that. It's that kind of interactions in the crowd as much as and then the atmosphere of it. And it's going to be really strange to lose that. And you are kind of taking away the USP of top level sport. And I say it will be really cool to see British rugby back and just be able to watch rugby again. And there will always, when internationals come back, and they're talking about having these kind of back-to-back Six Nations or home and away Six Nations and still trying to organise tours and so on, that will be exciting because it is good to just watch high-level rugby. But I imagine, especially for the players as well, there will be some loss of energy in not having it in there. And especially when you look at, you know, so that game against Ireland, Jamie Joseph leaves Michael Leach on the bench because he'd seen, when he'd done that a few months earlier, the huge roar Michael Leach got from the crowd when he came on. And so we went, actually, no, if there's a key moment in the game, we can bring Leach on and we can get a huge lift for our team. And as there was an injury early on, he came on early on, but you still got that roar, and it still kind of, you know, adds such a momentum to a team. So it's going to be really weird to get used to. And I've seen the odd bit of the German football and of the NRL without crowds, but it's not the same, and it won't be the same. And it's you know, if no other reason for us to find a vaccine, hurry up so that we can get crowds back for the Six Nations and for the
I,
Rugby
I,
Championship.
I fully agree, and I think that's going to be definitely a test for all of us as fans and all that. But yeah, I think I read an article the other day about how one of the players was saying the motivation of the fans keeps him going, keeps him pushing, and makes him play stronger and better every time. And
Yeah.
I think it was just before lockdown really got serious. I was watching New Zealand, Australian cricket, and the fact that you could hear the amount of stuff the guys talk was absolutely amazing, and was different. But to hear a cricket ball in a cricket game where you're not used to, we're going to hear the rugby ball and the ref talk more, and it's going to be a whole different world. But at least we got the sport back, and I think that's going to be the excitement going forward. I think
there was something on BT Sport talking about when the Premiership comes back without crowds. Do you want us to pump crowd sounds over the stadium anyway? And to try and just, like play reaction noises to see how it works. And that'd be quite cool. That'd be exciting. It'd be difficult to set up, but
yes, I'm for that because I mean I browsed on the TV the other day and I saw WrestleMania was on.
Okay.
And I thought, oh, let's see it. And you're watching it with no crowd, and I'm like, I'm not interested actually. I flicked, and normally I'd be excited as a kid for this, but I'm like, it's the crowd, the boos, the cheers, the "you suck" chants or whatever it may be that made it. And when I look at rugby, and I think,
Charlie Brooker, who's a kind of a British like satirist comedian person, he did it, and he also writes Black Mirror now. But he did a show in which he mentioned that actually watching WWE now without the crowd sound makes it feel like a weird specialist video from the dark web of just these two men in their pants kind of hugging.
Such a good point.
And without, as you say, the crowds and the chanting and the everything, it just feels a bit weird to watch.
So I think it might be something to look into if they bring in like fake noise. I see Skinny Brew Rugby says I didn't fake crowd noise would work. Maybe I think we all probably have our own thoughts and opinions on it, but for me, crowds bring so much emotion to a game, whether they hate you or love you. It just changes the attitude and the system.
So often the really moving thing when you're watching, whenever I've got emotion of watching highlights back, it's because you hear the roar of the crowd. Precisely. And it's the thing. I remember watching a thing with, I forget who it was a football commentator, talking about the key to commentating is to pause on the roar of the crowd or to announce the goal like a second late so that you pierce the roar of it, so that you are speaking, you are saying, goal, try, whatever, as it's, a second after it's scored, as the crowd is loudest. I remember Eddie Butler saying, if ever you can't think of what to say when you're commentating, just let the crowd do it for you. There's 80,000 people and they'll always be saying something.
Yes. And that's the thing. And the amazing thing, and I've noticed this quite a lot in South Africa, was if the ref makes a stuff up or a bad choice, the amount of boos, it's like a tackle, and all of a sudden the game's still going on, but the crowd's booing so loud that the ref's like almost forced to go, okay, well, what's going on? Let me go back. And then they go back to the tackle. And I know it ticks off a lot of fans. And it's particularly loud when the All Blacks play because the world, we want to beat them. So we're going to cheer and boo. And again, the influence of a crowd, and you're not going to have that. So it's going to be interesting because it's going to be a lot of pressure off a referee, for example. I mean, to ref a game where England, for example, are losing and you're Twickenham with a full crowd, hating, slaughtering you, but now they're going to maybe bring in a bit more confidence or get more confidence as a referee. I know if I were to, I would be definitely happy refereeing with our crowd because you don't have to worry about the person who could give you a death threat after a game because you just don't know what's going to happen. And again, another thing of crowds.
And that kind of picks up on the a point I was going to make, and then it went completely out of my head. And I'm now going to sort of talk in a circle and hope it comes back to me very quickly. It's about referees and stuff. I have completely forgotten what I was going to say. Never mind. Comments are nice. The point with the actually Plum Duff makes the same point of, in comedies when they put a fake audience laugh in. I suppose it's exactly the same thing of canned laughter.
Fair enough.
I'm dropping it in. Maybe we could add Seinfeld sign effects in the background of rugby. Yeah. So like when a player comes on the pitch, it just noise when someone walks into a room in Seinfeld. There you go. I made up for that. I made up for my complete brain fart.
It's definitely, we're heading into an interesting time of rugby and sport in general. With this whole new pandemic that we're all facing, and hopefully, we can find a cure or something to just get us back to our normal lives and people can get healthy again.
Yeah.
But I don't want to keep you too much longer, so I'll let the guys take the floor in the comment section for questions for you, because I know there's going to be lots for it. But to any person that's wanting to do this like what we do, and you particular having this as your full-time career, what's your advice to these guys who want to do it? Because I know there's lots out there who do it, who sit with a certain amount of subscribers, and that you get demotivated because it's not growing. What's your word of advice and encouragement to these future stars out there?
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing about future stars is the key here. That I know, because I only started doing the Squidge Rugby thing 2 years ago. In some ways, it looks like I've been, like a massive overnight success. And I mean, I started a website and a kind of YouTube channel when I was 10 years old. And so I've been kind of plugging away and making videos and stuff since then. And none of it really took off. None of it really worked. And then when I started uni, I started this kind of like comedy thing with a couple of my friends. And I took that really seriously. And we did a podcast and we did these kind of touring comedy shows that go okay. And we kind of had some following in the local area, but it wasn't beyond that. We would get at most 200 listeners, 200 views on a video we did. And so I spent a long time kind of plugging away. And now when I look back on it, I kind of go, oh, actually, that was my kind of apprenticeship. I very much learned to do this, that, the other. I taught myself to edit. And it was really useful to get better at that when there weren't that many people watching. And now if I make a bad video, or I make a video where there's a joke that I don't stand by or whatever, it's a problem. It's something I can't, it's an issue. And I feel like I'm letting people down. That's as much as anything. I feel like I'm letting down an audience that's gone, actually, I'm going to subscribe to this person, and I'm going to follow their work, and I'm going to watch everything they do, which is hugely appreciated. As I say, no one has to do that. And they are taking their time and they're deciding to do it. Yeah. And I'm sure you feel largely the same way. So I mean, the first point is just keep at it, because it can happen. And the other thing is, and I've said this enough times, that whenever, I've had a few times which people have DM'd me on Twitter or they've emailed me or whatever and asked about advice. And it's the same thing that I kind of realized is try and make the kind of thing that you want to see. That I always wondered, why is there there's no rugby content for people my age, for people under 30, 35. There just isn't really rugby content out there made for them. And I always assumed for a long time that it was because there wasn't the audience, or because it wouldn't land, or because people weren't interested. And I then have learned since that actually, no, there is that audience out there. I've now got whatever it is, 120, 130,000 subscribers. Most of them fit that demographic, because that audience is out there, just wasn't being served. And I went, well, actually, I want to see stuff that's detailed analysis, but consumable. And I want to see rugby stuff that I think is funny. And that's what I aim to do. Whether or not I achieve it isn't for me to say.
You achieve it, man.
Well, thank you. Sure. But that's it. Try and make the kind of stuff you want to see. There's no point, as you said, like, you're not Super Sport. I'm not the BBC or BT Sport or whatever. There's no point trying to be. There's no point spending loads of time trying to make your graphics look fancy, because it will always look worse than the channel where they're employing 30 people to do that, and where they've got professionals who've been working all their life at it. And so I'm aware that a lot of the stuff looks slightly shoddy, but that's largely deliberate. I'm kind of buying into that. And hopefully it's kind of funny that it looks like it's in a kind of rubbishy font. And so on. It is a bit slapdash. And obviously the production values have improved and it's got better since I started it, and I've got better at just using the editing software and so on. But yeah, that's the core of it, is be realistic, be willing to work at it. I'm also, as I say, lucky that I found a gap in the market when it was there. And there is still room, and there's still plenty of room in rugby as well as in other sports, and there will always be little niches. And what I do really is quite niche. I'm doing stupidly detailed stuff on what I think rugby is kind of the world's biggest niche sport. So I'm doing stupidly detailed with daft jokes about like Spider-Man 2 on PS2 and like Finnick and stuff that I often write a joke and I think no one will get this, but I'm okay with that. Because I'm trying to make stuff that I would want to watch and that I would enjoy. And I think that's probably the most important thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and very well said. And I think that's the thing. I went on to my one just because I have a passion, and my goal is I want to see myself as a future super sport guy one day. But it's like there's so many opportunities, there's so many people who are rugby stars that get these guys. But whereas YouTube gives us the opportunity to just do our own thing and create something unique and special in our own way and bring our own twang to our content. And I think, like, for you with everything you do, it's that comedic side that I love, and the energy and the electricity behind your voice too that works. And I think with people who maybe join me, it's the try not to be biased, the positive motivation side of things that I try and always bring across to the audiences watching. And I think for anyone out there, you just can't look at views and subscribers, because I think that's the biggest fault going into content creators, because we start this up and we think we're going to be the next KSI or Logan Paul, where people forget those guys also worked years and years to get to where they are. And like you said just now, it's not an overnight success. I mean, it took me 7 months to get to 100 subscribers. It took me a year to get to 1,000. And then people started to know, and it grew. But I said to 2 Cents Rugby the other day, I was like, this year's been on a downfall. I've lost maybe 100, 120. But again, it's not my focus. Obviously, I want the goal of 20K or, to have this as a career. But if that's your focus point, it's never going to be your end goal. You've got to do it for the love. And I not lost it, but you follow in the figures. And then I brought back to, why am I doing this? And that came back during lockdown, really, whereas I was working from home. You had time to, if there's a breaking news, quickly do it and get things going. And the love and the excitement came back for me in this.
That's really good to hear.
Yeah, and I think we all do. We go through our times, but for me, the key, without my friends, family who support, especially the mates who check the comment section for me or keep me going, I'll never forget the Wales South Africa semi-final. We had a big night the night before.
I tried to forget it, but
yeah. And I nearly said to myself, I woke up and my mind wasn't in the rightest of places, and I thought maybe I won't do this live stream. And I defeated that negativity, and that live stream was the turn into the final stream, which was my most watched video on my channel. And it was the changing effect, because people saw me and the emotion, and that's really what triggered me into the passion again. And I think it's a remarkable industry we're in.
I've had a kind of similar, I don't think I've said this kind of publicly before, but I had just on exactly the point you're making, of over the course of the World Cup being so burnt out by it, because I worked just impossibly hard whilst also on like a once in a lifetime holiday that I've been saving for 5 years. So I made, in the end, it was like 7 hours of content. And, by the week between the semi and the final, I was past 6, hours of this stuff. And it was taking me, I went through like my process and the notebook and everything. And it just got me to a point where I was so burnt out on it by that semi-final. And I think I was able to keep up a level of enthusiasm because Wales was still in it. And it still felt like I might be able to watch Wales win a World Cup. And that will keep me going. That thought will get me through literally anything. You could, if if you said it's the morning of the final, the only way to watch it is to walk across a bed of spikes and hot coals, and the whole time you're going to have people pouring tar over you, I'd do it.
Yeah.
Like that thought of watching Wales win a World Cup could get me through anything. And I think the moment they went out, I kind of had like a day of mourning, and then it kind of hit me of how tired and burnt out I was.
Yes.
And I said to my my closest and best friend, who she has no interest in rugby whatsoever, she doesn't care. She hasn't watched one of my videos, which is great and kind of perfect for it. And I was sat on the sofa and I said to her, like, I don't want to watch the final. Like, I've completely lost interest in rugby and I'm so burnt out on it. And it was kind of, I just had to say that out loud. And I kind of went, no, actually, I do. I reminded myself that actually I do love it, and I am doing this for a reason, and it's not just a job. It is something I'm genuinely so passionate about. And the moment I said it out loud, it was like I'd got this weight off me. And by the time the final kicked off, I was super excited. And by the time Cheslin Colby scored that try, I was jumping up and down and ecstatic. So I find you always good for the
started swearing. They're commenting now the final. Remember, G-Man?
Yeah.
But it was a crazy moment, and I actually put it on TikTok as well as a joke. And I looked back at it, I'm like, gee, but did I really react like that? But it was the heart of the moment, and I think it's those moments that bring you back, that deciding realization of how far you've come, but also that the brilliance of that how one can react and people can see you for being you. And I think that's the thing, because when we're creating, for example, your content, not everyone knows when they see you, it's like, wow, okay, cool, we can put it because we're seeing like the clips. And for the people to see me be like my normal crazy self watching a sport game where I go absolutely berserk and swear without even realizing it. And it's those moments that really just go back and appreciate it.
And I've had people kind of say like, "Oh, I'd love to watch a Wales game with Mr. Squidge," which is me. And actually, I don't know where you think I'll be insightful. I will just scream and shout. And like the Ross Moriarty try in the quarterfinal, I think is the loudest I've ever been. Like the neighbours literally complained. I'd gone back to watch it with my mum and brother, and I was properly shrieking and screaming just the word yes, very, very loud. And that would have been the same if we'd won the semi-final, but instead it was just sitting in from between the penalty being given and again watching with my mum and brother. Between the penalty being given and about 2 hours after the final whistle going, I think one sentence was said in the entire household. My mum said it just doesn't feel fair, and then my brother kind of like threw his hands on his head, and I said like he hasn't kicked anything yet, he might miss it. And that was the last thing anyone said between there and me and my brother just sat in the room saying nothing. And like the whole of Johnny English 2 played on ITV. Like we had the whole punditry that finished. Like there's half an hour of like wrap up. Then Johnny English 2 played on ITV, and we watched the whole of it in complete silence, not saying a single word.
That's the
other side of it. That's the other side of the coin. Of like, you can't have that excitement of the Colby try without the potential, at least, of moments like that. And that's the beauty of it. It's like this huge emotional lottery.
And that's the thing. And I think, it's like with how sport can trigger something like that of people just getting emotional or ignited, whether you're South African or not, and that's the beauty of sport. And when Ireland beat New Zealand in 2018, for me that was huge for Ireland, and I was just as ecstatic for them as I was for the Springboks winning, just because it's something different. It's a milestone to from the stories of how these teams struggle to get to where they are. To beat a team like the All Blacks is a hell of an achievement and accomplishment, and credit to them. England in 2018 too, where they unfortunately lost in the 84th minute, I think it was, to the All Blacks in Twickenham. Again, it was just the moments. And I think what people, because I so try and not be biased, if someone had to watch a game with me, I give the ref hell. I mean, I will say, ref, man, or you an idiot or something like that. And that's something people don't get to see. And I think I did it in the streams as well. And it just shows how people can react to the sport
Absolutely.
in general.
Yeah.
My last
I see,
question
I was
before.
gonna go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
go on.
No,
No, you go.
go.
No, I was just going to point out just on what you were saying about Skinny Brew Rugby saying, imagine you had to see them
Yes.
losing in a live stream, Squidge. That's why I haven't watched Wales in a live stream. That's why I haven't done that, because you wouldn't want to see it. Wouldn't be pretty. The whole of YouTube would be taken down, not just the video. Like you'd have to delete the internet in general, just because of how vivid it would be, how visceral. All right, so your question.
Now, before we get to the guys over here asking questions, it started already. We'll try and get to a few. But my question for you is, how do you deal? And this is for me as advice for me as well, is with the comment section. Like the odd guys out there who troll, who are negative. How do you deal with that and approach that type of thing? Because for me, that is one of the toughest challenges. If I see negative or people calling you an idiot or certain things like that, I've got better with it. But I used to be very good at replying to every single comment on my video. But then it obviously grew and it got harder to do that. But those negative comments get you to a point where it's like, why? How do you do? I mean, because you got millions and millions of views on your videos and stuff.
Yeah, more than 6, which is as high as I can count. So yeah, I think that's quite a good question for it, and I think a level of it comes from the fact, as I mentioned, I've been sort of doing this in some way since I was 10, and the stuff I was doing when I was 10, the comments saying this is terrible, get a life, were entirely fair when I look back on them, because like it wasn't that good. And if I try, I don't rewatch any of it now. I don't go back to it because it was made by a 10-year-old, and it's kind of was what it was. So in some ways, I've just got used to it. In some ways, I've just developed a thick skin through that. But I think the other thing I've learned to do very much is to sort of separate myself from it. So I kind of separate my work from who I am.
Okay.
So I can take criticism if they're saying, "Oh, I didn't like this video, I didn't like this point you made, I didn't like whatever."
Yes.
That's easy enough to take, and I've actually taken to kind of now. I save a lot of them to my phone. I screenshot them and just keep a lot of the really awful things people say, because they tend to be quite funny. And I stick them. I'm not going to find one quickly, but never mind. So I find I sort of divide myself from it. It's almost like there's a difference between Squidge and Robbie, and they're very much versions of the same person. It's still largely me, but there is a level of public persona there.
Yes.
In the way you're a different person when you're around your parents to when you're around your friends. Yeah. So I think I've just come to go, oh well, they're criticizing a guy, a version of that's not quite me. In the same way, I've had the opposite end of, like, I've had really nice comments and I've just gone, oh, they're talking about that Squidge guy, not me. And sometimes I have that kind of, difference of when people mention it. It's like, oh, that is me they're talking. Right, okay. But I guess it's helped me stay kind of grounded through it, and has helped me. I've never really taken many of the comments to heart. I've always kind of worked through it, and I've there's a whole other conversation to be had about mental health and so on.
Yes.
But that's another hour. But I've always found that I can separate that from the YouTube stuff, and from it's like there's that separation of church and state, that separation of kind of YouTube and life, as it were.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
It's definitely a very interesting point of how we look at it, and I'm getting better at it. It used to be one of the, not downfalls, but you take it to heart. But I think as the more you go along, we grow and we adapt to certain things that are said. But then I look at what I've achieved through it. Like, so many people have watched this video, so many people have subscribed. I mean, there we go. You, Rusty Erasmus. I like that comment. I like that comment you said on Twitter the other day, when I congratulated you for Rusty's compliment. He said, you with Pisho and me with Rusty, we could take over World Rugby together. Let's
give it a few years. Give it a few years. Yeah,
we take over.
We'll be the ticket instead of Beaumont and Laporte.
Precisely, and that for me is the biggest reward or that I could ever achieve is a guy like Augustin Peugeot, former vice chairman, Argentine legend, acknowledging me.
Yeah.
A guy
How
with
was that?
20,000
How is
subscribers. He saw my content. He shared it. I mean, that for me was I was emotional. I was like, wow, that is something. And then I don't know. It was early days of YouTube. The Springboks did an ad for when England were touring. It was before our first tour with Rassie. And my video clip, it was something I said about the Springboks, was on that advert.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And it was like, holy shit, the Springboks have just noticed me. And that for me was, give me all the hate you want. There's my win. And the relationships you build with the people who watch, who comment, who are loyal, who subscribe.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
I love doing live streams, is because although tonight, obviously, because we're discussing it, it's not always, but for me, having a Saturday stream to chat to these guys who take the time out of their Saturday evening to watch me means a hell of a lot to me. And I'm so grateful and appreciative to every single one of these people who are commenting, asking questions, because it blows my mind that people from around the world are just watching you. And I mean, the silly thing is watching a game. You just see my face watching a game, but it's that interaction that I've thoroughly enjoyed, and the building and the growth of all that. It's just been awesome. So
absolutely. And exactly the same thing of like, people don't need to subscribe to me. You know, they've got thousands of other things they could be doing with their day. They've got millions of other videos on YouTube they could be watching, and they're choosing to watch mine, you know. And so I always make sure I read at least every comment and I read everything I get in. Because if they're choosing to take their time out to watch me, that is the least I can do in return.
Yeah. All right, let's get to a few questions here, because there's quite a lot there. So
sorry, I've nattered a lot. I've just kind of gone on and on and on.
But, no. That's the whole point of today. I didn't think we'd get to the comment section, but I thought let's try and do something. Clippers there a lot. There's a lot of joke and talk here too. I think Skinny Brew also made a. Okay, I'm just going to read this one because he's also a South African YouTuber who I did a stream with him on the other day, and I mean, he says you got to look at the positive, but learn to look at the positive comments and all that stuff. So I think he can also relate to this. But watching, just talking about that and smaller YouTubers, there's a guy in New Zealand, I don't know if you've heard of him, called Driving Mall.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, that guy is so committed. He gets videos 4-3 times a day, and yet he's still sitting on only 2,000 subscribers. My heart bleeds for guys like that who put so much work, but yet it's just not getting there. And I mean, they need the work. But yeah, I suppose it's patience and key, and I think you've learned that. I've definitely learned that. And yeah, so here's one from Mark Toon. He says, Squidge, are you aware that sometimes people have to watch your videos on 0. I've seen this one, 0.75 playback speed to be able to follow you with the commentary.
Yeah, so I've heard. I've got no idea why they talk about that. I don't talk that fast at all. I don't know really why they're doing that at all. Yeah, I've come across that, and also the people reading and pressing the space bar to read the little bits. Yeah, I guess sorry. It was something I didn't. I always knew I talk quite quickly naturally, but I didn't realize how quickly until I put those first few videos out, and I have slowed down since. I have tried to, but the other side of it as well. I've mentioned how much work goes into editing it. There was a part of me, especially early on, that would subconsciously go, well, the quicker I talk, the less work I have to do. I can kind of work around that. And if I'm trying to get through 6 videos a week in order to get through a World Cup or something, I've kind of beaten that. You know, I've kind of learned to slow down more, and especially when I think it's important. But yeah, I'm very aware of it. People have made me aware of it, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is how I talk. I think it's probably down to watching too much Doctor Who as a kid, where everyone just talks really quickly.
Good old Doctor Who. I find your, I don't know, maybe it's, I always find it interesting hearing your voice, and the speed doesn't bother me. Sometimes, yes, you pause back to see what the comment was, but that's what I've enjoyed about yours is the commentary of the voice of how you approach it, and that really what stood out for me. So yeah, I don't have a problem with it. So keep talking fast. Martin says, "Yes, Squidge, you made me appreciate the game much more. I didn't realize the technicality that goes into it. Yet you break it down so even a layman can understand it." And I couldn't agree more with that one.
That's really lovely. No, I'm delighted to be able to do that for you, and for anyone else, as you say yourself, Gareth, that have had similar experience, because the game is so endlessly fascinating, and there's not enough people talking about the proper details of it.
No, I agree. And then there's another one here that I've just. Blizzard B says, "How did you feel when you got that tweet about Rassi?"
Because the reaction to the video had already been really strong, and I'd done this kind of live premiere and stuff, and it had gone down really well, and people were really happy with it, and I'd had a few kind of. I knew I was happy with it, but I was worried because it was kind of following up that video in the final, which I do think is. It's the one of my, I'm normally own harshest critic and all of that, but that's the one video I watch back and go like, oh no, that was good. No, I got that one right. That one worked. That one landed. I stuck the landing there. And so I was kind of nervous about the fact that can anything I do follow that up properly? Can I do it justice to be doing this basically sequel to it? And so as the thing went on and people were enjoying it, it was working. And even the hyena joke was going down amazingly. Again, like I finished it a few days out, and I kind of came to in like a cold sweat the day before it went out, kind of thinking, that's in there. Like that comes up several times. I didn't cut that. Because there's often jokes like that I cut, or I just go, was because I had a good follow up to that, whatever. So anyway, I just was kind of scrolling through Twitter, seeing all of that, and then I noticed someone just tagged me in another tweet, and I kind of went, oh, what's that? Clicked on it, and I saw the Razzie Erasmus tweet, and it took me about a solid minute or two. No, not quite that long, but it felt like it. It felt like my brain processed it in slow motion. It was probably about 5 seconds, in which I kind of went, oh, there's a verified tick next to it. That is the Razzie Erasmus. Right. He watched it. And also, because he did it right after the video went out, he clearly watched it live. He'd clearly set aside time on Saturday evening going, this goes out at 7, 8 o'clock. I'm going to watch it when it happens. He wasn't just going to leave. I'll never get used to it. And again, I kind of, I had a few people kind of texting me at the time about it. And that came, and then my brother just rang me just in a state of like sheer shock that literally the person in the world who knows the most about rugby at the minute, the world's #1 authority, said that actually I've got an idea what's going on, which is nice, which is good, which isn't something I've always been sure of. So I walked to the shop and bought cake because I thought that's all I can do. I need to celebrate somehow.
Oh, brilliant. No, it's moments like that keep us going and keep us active. And I don't want to. There's a good one that I think I've seen at least 10 times pop up, and I want to also get this one.
Okay.
What came behind the name of Squidge Rugby? What's this inspiration behind calling your channel Squidge?
It was something my dad used to call me as a kid, and it was kind of a nickname that stuck and didn't. Like it wasn't something I was referred to as all the time, but every once a week or something, I'd just be with someone that you just refer to like, oh, a Squidge over there, and it was me. And I kind of liked it. I kind of like it as a word. I've heard other people say, apparently it's quite a common Welsh thing to refer to small things as Squidge. So to refer to a baby as Squidge or something. And it just kind of sort of stuck. And when I was thinking about naming a channel, I think there's a lot of YouTube channels and blogs and podcasts and so on out there on rugby. They're all called some piece of terminology. It'll be like line break rugby, or they'll be called like 22 dropout rugby, or reset scrum rugby or whatever. Or it's generic kind of terms that you've heard, and they all blow into one, and I forget which one's which. And sometimes I go, oh, I like their stuff, and then realize it was a different channel I was thinking of, and I went, well, it needs to be something that is different and stands out. And the moment Squidge Rugby came into my head, I kind of went, great, that's it. I'm done. Like, it's memorable, you know. You might call it Squish Rugby or Squidgy Rugby instead, but you won't mix me up with something else.
It's smart, and it's a history. And I mean, if I look at other guys out there, for example, 2 cents, I think that is such a, when I look at it, when I first thought it's like 2 cents rugby, and then I realized, you know, I'm just giving my 2 cents here on this part of a game. I'm like, that is genius. What a name to call 2 cents rugby. Give my 2 cents on it. And it literally is that. Who, I mean, he's just brilliant as well. And it's amazing the name that comes between and how, and I'm glad you shared that. So thank you for that story of that, because I think a lot of people, would be curious in that. I think last one.
Okay, I could do a speed round.
Eh?
I was going. Favorite video I've ever created, probably the one on the phone. I really like the La Rochelle one, but I haven't watched it in a while, so I don't know. Was that the question you were going to ask?
Going to be the question. Favorite video.
The one on the final. I was really proud of the Sam Warburton one as well, even though I've watched it back now, and I think actually the people say
one. That was a big one. The Sam one.
It was that and the Conor Murray one were the two that really blew up. And it was, I went to see the new Mission Impossible film the day I put the Sam Warburton video up, and I came out the other side and turned my phone back on. I had 200 plus Twitter notifications because not only had it gone down well, but Sam Warburton retweeted it and said he liked it, which that was kind of the first interaction I'd had with a player as well. And with him being the Wales captain, you know, in that period when, not necessarily when I was a kid, but when I was a teenager and really, when I was first becoming a full-on rugby nerd, he was the Wales captain, you know. So that was cool. That was an amazing, surreal moment. And because up until that point, I hadn't even thought that proper players and coaches might watch my videos.
Yeah, keepers, that's quite something. Especially guys you like you say, as a youngster, you idolize and and get these people acknowledging you. I mean, when Pisho acknowledged me, I couldn't believe it. And I've met Rassie once, and he didn't say anything, but the way he looked at me, it was like, I've seen you somewhere. And it's those kind of interactions and moments. But there was one of our commentators here, Matthew Pierce, who's our main commentator on Supersport. He acknowledged and came up to me, and that for me was this. It's like, wow,
yeah.
Supersport guys are acknowledging or noticing.
I've had a moment where I was just watching a game and a commentator quote, like they didn't refer to it, but they referred to a piece of analysis I did in a video, and it's like there is no one else has used that phrase on that team other than, because you know it's a French team, and no one else has used that phrase. That they've seen my video on this. That was odd. It's that kind of thing, as you're saying. It's
that's amazing. Well, Squidge, I mean, I could talk to for hours and hours. But
so can I, evidently.
I mean, I thank you so much for taking out time of your day to join me on the stream.
Sorry, I've just seen Rem's comment on how's lockdown in Argentina, which thank you for that. Thank you for that reminder that I asked the Uruguay captain, how's lockdown in Argentina. That was a horrendous moment. Though to answer the question that's just come up twice, second favorite international team would be Uruguay, not Argentina.
Oh, there we go.
I'm just going to go very quickly. So you're wrapping up. What position do I play? I play fullback, but I played mostly on the wing. I played 10 once and it was a disaster. Video we've answered. Japan was great, was amazing. When did the barber shop open again? Tell me about it. My hair's getting ridiculous around the back. Like it's properly, and because I've got very Welsh genes, like I don't know if you're aware, but like curly hair's a very Welsh thing, and it's properly like curled up at the back. It's like I don't know if you can see it there, but yeah, I'm starting to look like I'm a baby again. But I'm too afraid to shave it off because male pattern baldness runs on both sides of my family, and I've only got a few years left. How long does it take to break down a game? A long time. I mentioned at the beginning. Favorite teams over in their own country. Uruguay. Am I going to South Africa the line? So I'd like to. I genuinely don't know. Something about Hadley Parks. Hadley Parks is great. New laws being tried in New Zealand. I'll interested them go, but what's next to the Squid channel? Will content evolve in 2020? Probably. Which video do you really regret? That's a big question. The ones I really
You're
regret.
quicker than me. I'm
you
trying to
haven't
catch
seen.
up to you.
If you two are in James Bond, who would be Bond and who would be M? I think I'd be the Bond girl, frankly. That's what I'd want, or the villain. That's who I'd want to be. I want to wear a disgusting bikini and be killed instantly for no reason. We'll be back doing analysis for Scrum 5. I hope so. That was another highlight. Was I'd grown up watching Scrum 5, which is kind of the big rugby show in Wales.
Yes.
As a kid, and they had me onto a couple of segments over Christmas and then during the Six Nations. That was amazing. That was another highlight. Remember, as he endorsed me, we've done that.
And also, you've done quite a bit with World Rugby too, which is actually quite remarkable. And you were on the YouTube channel a few times. I mean, that's a hell of a achievement and accomplishment. So well done again there.
Thank you. Yeah, it's just kind of from. Partly they need something to fill the time while there's no rugby on, and they just went, we turned to Muggins over here and he'll do something for us. But yeah, I think it's also to kind of divorce it from being myself. It's important to see the governing bodies recognizing people like me and yourself, and to recognize independent content creators and to go, actually, this is what's kind of pushing the game forward, and this is an important part of how things go forward and how people consume content nowadays, of that kind of market of under 30s that I mentioned way back 17 hours ago when we started. Okay. Sorry, I've just hijacked your whole thing.
No, go. I think it means a lot to these guys that you're reading the comments. No problem.
I agree. Yes. Plan to go to South Africa for the Lions. I'd love to. I genuinely don't know at the minute. I'm still waiting for tickets and so on to appear. How do I feel?
Are you planning to come down for that?
I'd love to. I'd like to. I'm still weighing it up, and I'm still looking at tickets go on sale, I think, July. So I'll have a look then and see if I can get them, and we'll see. Question: how do we get G-Man to be the biggest rugby pundit on the net? That's the question, isn't it? You might be the better post one to answer that than me.
I can't answer that one. Keep going at it. I don't know. Okay. Maybe one day, guys. Squidge just got that title.
Do you feel any rule changes need to be made to the game? The one thing I always think is giving offside to linesmen so the referee can focus on the breakdown. Don't know, but that's the only thing that comes to mind. How are you all doing? I'm all right. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm bloody good.
Good. Glad to hear it. After this live stream, need to watch your celebration of the Pimpy Trot. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to watch that back after this finishes in 2024. We're going to miss the next World Cup because I'll still be answering these. Remember the drinks flying? Sure.
I lost my drink because the guys were copying the table and they were banging and everything was vibrating. My brandy and coke freaking nearly went all over my laptop, but thank goodness it didn't do anything. But the guys loved that moment. I don't know.
Yeah.
The drinks flying.
Blizzard B saying, who did I support on the day of the final, England or the Springboks? And I always lean towards the Springboks, and I think because being Welsh, there's a very anti-English.
Good answer.
And especially I spoke to I remember saying to Sam Larner, who was a rugby writer for Rugby World and Planet Rugby and stuff, who had a similar thing of he grew up as a Wales fan in England, and we had a moment of saying people will say you're less Welsh than someone that lived in the valleys their whole life, but actually, if you grew up as a Wales fan when England won that World Cup in 2003. You're Welsher than anyone else can ever be, and you stuck to Wales throughout there. I'll always aim for anyone not playing England. And there was a moment when the final started where I thought, I think actually I'm fairly new. I'm as neutral as I've ever been for an England game because I want rugby to be the true winner, and it was in the end. But then when Andre Pollard does that up and under and he takes it moments in, I screamed at the top of my voice, "Go on, Andre!" And not even Pollard, Andre. Yeah.
I still went, not an up and under. Then he caught him and it was bloody mental.
And Jacques Ferry comments. I assume it's a different one or someone just used it.
If only.
How do the Welsh feel about the box? There is that kind of I think it's almost like a dread when you see the box coming in the fixture list. It's oh no. Again, because we only beat them once between the start of international rugby and 2014. So all the time we'd sort of come close enough, but we kind of fall away and you batter our scrum. And it's it's a fear, but an enormous respect. And there's always this thing of as I said in that video, you want a strong Springboks team, you know, because they're traditionally the one team that will beat the All Blacks or will give them a really good game. And I love watching the Springboks, and I love their kind of I love the style of rugby. I love that sheer brutality and the all out commitment. But it is from the Welsh perspective rather than my own. It is very much oh no, we're in for a long 80 minutes.
I like this comment here. If Squidge, if YouTube never works out, you do fine as an auctioneer or a horse racing commentator. Michael Flood.
That's the aim. I spent years in horse racing commentator school learning to speak so quickly. I only got a B though. You know, I don't know what fell through there. The problem is though, if I don't talk quickly enough, they take me out behind the back and shoot me. That is. There's a joke for you. Why do I hate the English, though? Very good question. Do you want me to get into years of imperialism? Favorite Super Rugby team? It's become the Chiefs since Warren Gatland went there. I know, sorry. Warren Gatland, since they went there. Do you think Fiji will ever make it out of the playoff? Probably. Why did I stop playing rugby? I went to uni and I kind of felt I couldn't fit everything in. And I went to turn up to a training session. I turned up to the wrong field and went, well, I can't fit in next week's, so never mind. So boring answer, but I just never picked it up again. And I think just not being that big, it was quite. I've taken up touch since. I took it quite quickly, and I enjoy that. Will you marry my mother-in-law?
Yeah, I saw that.
that's a hell of an ask. I'm willing to meet. I won't make any promises on marrying her right away.
He's also in the UK, so it might be easier to meet them too.
It might be that I know them. It might be that I've met them.
Oh, that is classic.
If I could meet one player, who would it be? That's a really good question. I'm not entirely sure. Because the obvious answer is Alan Wynne-Jones, but I'd be too intimidated to speak to him. He's kind of the player I struggle to talk to most. I don't know. It'd probably be someone that I just think is a fun guy. Like I met Reece Patchell a few months ago, and he's great. He's like I feel like I could be his friend, and it's almost an awkward thing to put out there now. And I asked him a really awful question when I was interviewing him, and he batted it away, and he kind of treated like a pro, and he didn't go, "That's a stupid question." So yeah, I'd like to meet Reece Patchell again and be a close friend. Someone says Sam Warburton on for a chat. Thoughts on Finn Russell? I think he's great. I love him, and mostly because he's mad. What positions I play? Yeah, as I sort of mentioned in passing, I preferred fullback. I played mostly on the wing. Have I met any worse players? I just mentioned I met Reece Patchell, and I've had kind of more like I interviewed Shane Williams, who was my kind of hero growing up as a.
Oh wow!
I know.
Shane Williams.
Yeah, I did.
Jeez, he's a player.
I had a moment where he finished asking his question. I realized I didn't know my next question yet. And I just began talking. And I ended up sort of saying, like, obviously growing up as a Wales fan when I did, you know, I was a huge fan of you. And he kind of, the moment is I went like, oh, it's one of those interviews. Like he's a proper card carrying fan. Like he can list all of my tries most likely. But yeah, he was lovely about it. He was really nice about it. But that was a huge intimidating thing to interview Shane. Yeah. Sure.
Wow. What a player.
Yeah. Oh, incredible. Like he's sort of my all-time favorite player, all-time hero, kind of the player that got me into rugby as well and made me start playing.
The size of Shane and the speed that he could pick up. Cracky. He's just like, short people inspiration right there.
Yes. Absolutely.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, no, Squidge, this has been absolutely amazing. Much as I don't want to end, it has been phenomenal. I thank you so much for your time. And again, I thank you for your effort and the inspiration that you've given me, other people out there on YouTube. It's been remarkable, and credit to you. And I hope you continue to grow from strength to strength. And I look forward to working alongside you when we take over World Rugby. I'm going to hold you to that.
Likewise. Thank you very much. One last question I want to answer. Declan D says, when you next plan to visit the Punch Valley Stadium? It's being used as a hospital at the minute for COVID-19 patients, so hopefully not very soon. I want to wait a while before visiting it again.
Fair enough.
No, thank you very much for having me on. No, I've really enjoyed it. It's been great to chat to you. That's been great.
Yeah.
And likewise, keep up the good work. I really enjoy what you do, and clearly
Thank
you
you
work
so much.
so hard at it. So
Thank you.
it's
It
really
means a
great
lot.
to see. No,
Thank you.
thank you for having me.
Guys,
Cheers.
Man, this has been the best one. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining. Comment section. I know we haven't got to everyone. Well, Squidge did a phenomenal job at getting to most of you. Thanks so much for joining. 73 people have been here. We got likes. It's been great. Squidge, again, this has been the best stream of my life. So thank you for joining. It's been an absolute
you did
honor.
when you won the World Cup. You can't say that. You can't say I'm better than winning the World Cup.
Second best.
There we go. There we go. If you're not approached that World Cup win, I'm going to take that semi-final back. Like I'm certainly all and more.
Okay, second best.
Okay.
Best.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you for having me.
Thank you so much. Fun. No, it's been awesome. Thanks so much. Keep well, bud. Oh, that's been awesome. Stay safe, guys, and never give up. We'll keep you soon. Cheers.